Everyone, good morning. Thank you for joining us. So I'm Stephanie Jordan. I'm the local food program manager at Sustainable Solano, and as you can see, I'm also a chef. I had a catering business in Chicago for about 8 years before moving out here in 2011, and I also taught tons of cooking classes, and I was on the adjunct faculty at a small culinary school called Robert Morris University, also in Chicago too. So I've been doing this since about 2003, and I think it's a lot of fun, so welcome. This cooking demonstration is one of many classes that we will be doing, both virtual, like this, and live, hopefully, sooner rather than later, out in Solano County. And the purpose is to raise awareness of specialty crops that are grown by our farmers here in Solano County. And you're probably wondering, what is a specialty crop? So those are basically mostly things that we eat. It's vegetables, fruit, tree nuts, culinary herbs. There's also some nursery products, including flowers in there. So maybe I'll get my hands on some edible flowers at some point. But we're really focusing on the edible specialty crops in our county. And this project is funded by the California Department of Food and Agriculture. So I just want to send a thank you to CDFA for support of this cooking series. This project is also part of Sustainable Solano's larger vision to create a more resilient and equitable food system in Solano County. There's a lot more on these projects on our website, sustainablesolano.org, and you can go to the local food page and just find a host of information, past projects, current projects that we're working on. So as Allison mentioned, we would love to know about you guys, my audience. I'd love to know where you're coming from and what cities you're in, if you're in Solano County or if you're out of state. So feel free to put that into the chat box. And just a friendly reminder in case anybody has joined right now, if you have questions, go ahead and put them into the chat box, and we'll do a Q&A later, and or you could also just hold your questions and then do a raise hand later, and then you can ask me directly, because I would love to have interaction with my audience. So today I'm going to be demonstrating a asparagus salad with a tangerine sesame vinaigrette. So the tangerines are going to get replaced by navel oranges, which I have a lot of, and we'll also talk about some other citrus that's showing up in some CSA boxes right now. I have some really interesting, these are called gold nugget mandarins. They're kind of bumpy and they almost look like something tropical. They're kind of knobby and gnarly looking. So those are options. And then there's also still those little cuties coming off of people's trees. So lots of citrus to pick from. The reason I really like this recipe is because it does utilize some of this end of the season citrus that's still very abundant in certain areas of the county. Yet it also starts to pull in some spring ingredients like asparagus, which is kind of our star of the show today. Allison, did you want to show the recipe really quick right now? I'm going to see if she can do a quick screen share.
It is up now.
There it is, yep. This recipe and some other ones are also on our website, and you'll find it through the local food page. And we're trying also to get these videos recorded and posted on our website too, in case you want to go back and look at them again or share them with friends or whatever. So check out the website for all those details. Okay, so as you can see on the recipe, I've broken it down. I have kind of the main salad ingredients and then the vinaigrette ingredients, and then there's some garnishes. So I'm just going to kind of follow it straight through. I'll be bouncing back and forth between some different sections, and we will put it all together at the end. Also, just a note on the quantities, I'm not going to be doing the full 2 pounds of asparagus. I'm going to use what I got in my CSA box this week, which was 1 bunch, which is probably closer to just 1 pound. But for the vinaigrette, I will demonstrate those full quantities just because it's not a huge amount, and it's kind of, you know, hard to do quarter teaspoons of things. So I'm just going to make the full batch of vinaigrette, and if I have extra, yay, I have more for a salad tomorrow. Okay, Allison, I think that's good on the recipe. Thank you. And so let's go to our first ingredient, which is the asparagus. So when it shows up, either in your box or in the store, by the way, these came in my Terra Firma CSA box. They're a farm near Winters. It's spelled Terrafirma. I would love to say join their CSA, but they are maxed out right now because everyone is trying to avoid grocery stores and get food direct from farms. But they're a wonderful CSA. You know, you can try, but they may have a wait list. But this came up from them, and when you get it, you'll notice that the ends are kind of white. So these are kind of the more tough ends that you want to take off of your asparagus, and you can do it one of two ways. What I usually do is I just start to bend it, and what will happen is the rough, kind of more woodsy part will just naturally snap off, and then we're going to get rid of that, and then I've got this to keep and cook. So again, I'm just going to snap it, and it'll naturally break kind of where that rough part is. But I did most of this already, so I've just got a few extras left here. Another alternative is if your asparagus is not so white at the end and it doesn't feel, you know, if it still feels kind of bendy down here, this one has a little bit of a rough spot. So I might take off a tad bit of that, or you can just cut off the end. You could also peel, which will save some of your product. So just a regular old potato peeler, carrot peeler, whatever, just go across and take off the outer bit of maybe the bottom, I don't know what I did here, about 1.5 inches or so, and that'll kind of help get rid of that tough part. And then you're ready to go there. So this one, I'll peel a couple of these. Turning it around and peeling it like I would peel skin off of a carrot. Okay. This is my favorite kitchen tool. It's a bench scraper, also known as a pastry scraper. Fantastic for scraping up little bits of things, especially sticky things like garlic that's been minced. You can get them just about anywhere, and they're not expensive. So I'm going to try to talk a little bit about some of my tools, and we might have time to do some knife skill stuff later too. Okay, so you have options for cooking the asparagus, and I listed 2 on the recipe, and there's also a third that I realized I could list too. So you could roast it in your oven. If you've got your oven on, that's a good option. You would spread them out on a sheet pan, probably a bigger pan than this. You want to have them spread out so that they kind of have a little space to breathe without the paper towel, of course. And you could put a little bit of oil on your asparagus and then roast it in about a 400-degree oven, 400, 425, somewhere in that range. I had in the recipe olive oil, and I realized I would probably not use olive oil for this particular recipe because we are doing a more Asian-inspired vinaigrette. So I would do something more neutral if you decide to roast your asparagus. Avocado oil would be a good choice. Sunflower or something like that, something that doesn't have a strong flavor, because you really want the flavor of the vinaigrette to come out more than the oil on your asparagus. So you could do the oil application and then roast it in the oven, or you could put on a little oil and grill it. So that's the option that's not on the recipe. So just know if your grill's on, feel free to stick it on the grill. They do make out there in the world some little basket things. They're like flat perforated little pans that are helpful for putting on the grill so that your asparagus doesn't fall into your grill. So just depending on how your grill is structured, that might be a good option if you like grilled. The reason that there's kind of like pros and cons to both of these cooking methods. So with the roasting and the grilling, you are putting an oil on the asparagus, which means that when it comes time to assemble your salad, the vinaigrette may not penetrate into the asparagus quite so much because it kind of has a little barrier around it. So, you know, the flavor of the vinaigrette will just be showing up elsewhere, but it won't really get onto your asparagus very much. However, if you're grilling or roasting your asparagus, you do have the opportunity to have it caramelize a little bit because you're cooking it at such a high heat. So you've probably been to maybe a restaurant or somewhere, and you'll see on your asparagus, you know, little brown spots, which is just, you know, from a little bit of charring on the vegetables, which of course adds a lot of really good flavor. So, you know, that's kind of your trade-off. What I'm going to do today is blanching and shocking the asparagus, which means I'm going to put it into a pot of boiling water, which I have back there on my stove. And I'm just going to leave it in for a few minutes. And then I'm going to plunge it into ice water. That's the shocking part. And the reason I'm going to do that method is because I feel that the asparagus then will absorb more of that vinaigrette when I assemble the salad later. Also, the blanching and shocking will help the asparagus maintain a bright green color. And the shocking part is important because you also want to stop the cooking process. Asparagus is really, you know, it's tiny, and it doesn't take long for this to overcook and get really mushy. So I'm gonna just plunge it in there for maybe like just a couple of minutes, and then I'm gonna stick it into my ice water and then pull it out, and it'll come back over here to my sheet pan and dry off a little bit. So I'm gonna go turn my pan of water back up really quick. All right, it's boiling back there and ready to go. So I'm gonna go stick it in. All right, some of those longer pieces I had to break in half because they wouldn't fit in the pan. I should have picked a bigger pan. Okay. So then for the shocking part, here is just a big bowl of ice cubes and cold water. They're kind of chunky here. It's about half full. You want to make sure you have enough water so that the asparagus gets completely submerged in the water, and then that's it. So I'm just going to pull it out with some tongs in a couple minutes. Meanwhile, let's look at our other main salad ingredients, which are the oranges. So let's see here. Oh, you know what? I'm going to talk about the lettuce first, actually. So for today, this was also from Terra Firma. I got some really nice red leaf lettuce. This actually still has a little bit of the root on it, which is kind of cool. So when you clean your lettuce, what I do is I stick it into a giant, keyword giant, bowl of water, cold water. And so I've broken off the leaves. I find a good way to get this taken apart is you start by pulling off some of the leaves, and when you get about, I don't know, a third of the way down, then you can twist the core out of your lettuce. So all the leaves go into my big bowl of cold water, and then I slosh, slosh, slosh. And you can be a little aggressive with your sloshing because you're trying to get all the dirt off. And what happens is your dirt will sink to the bottom of the bowl and any other residue and sediment, and then your leaves will float. So you can just skim your leaves off the top, and then these go into a salad spinner, which I don't know how I survive without a salad spinner. So I have a collection of leaves in here. This is also how I would wash herbs: cilantro, parsley, basil, any of that stuff. Slosh it in the big bowl of water, put it in the salad spinner, and then we're gonna give it a spin. Okay, most salad spinners have a little brake over here. I can put the brakes on. Okay. Also, if you do get lettuce in a CSA box, the key is keeping it dry. So if you can do this process as soon as you get your box or within a couple of days, get your lettuce or spinach or whatever it is dried out and put it into a container. I usually layer in some paper towels and then put it in the fridge, and it'll keep longer. You want to keep it from getting wet, because once this starts to get wet, it'll start to break down and not be happy. Won't last as long. Okay, so there's my lettuce. I'm going to check on my asparagus back here. Okay, this feels done. All right, so it's now having a little bath in the ice water, and it just started to feel a little bit flexible. You know, it's not super soft. I think crisp tender is a good goal for this. So I'm just going to let it sit in there for a little bit, and then we'll move it back to its sheet pan so it can dry out. I'm going to try to get it as dry as possible. Grab another towel. And you know, again, you want to try to have your lettuce dry and all your salad ingredients dry so that the vinaigrette that we're making can stick. Okay, so there's my asparagus. It looks nice and bright green. I'll lay it out there. Okay, we're done with this. Okay, so there's my cooked asparagus. And I'm gonna hang out over here. A little holding zone there. Okay, so we talked about the lettuce, we talked about the asparagus. My lettuce is gonna hang out over here on a towel too and just kind of dry out for a while. All right, on to the oranges. So for this salad, we need zest of the orange, we need the juice, and we need the segments for the actual salad. So for the zesting, we want to do that first. So you can use one of these tools, which is called a microplane. It's just a long, skinny thing. It's got very fine little, I don't know if I would call them blades. It's like a little, sort of like a blade, mini blade. And I'm just going to run this across it. The good thing about the microplane is that it typically only takes off the orange zest on the outside, and it doesn't get down deep enough to pull off the pith, which is right underneath there. So we just want some of the bright orange zest, which will go into our vinaigrette. I'm going to do this part first, then we'll go back and I'll show you how to do the segments. So let's see here. For the zest, we need, what do we need? Like 1.5 teaspoons. Okay, so not very much. So I'm going to go ahead and do this orange. And maybe a little bit of this one. Looks like we're about there though. Looks like we're getting close to our amount. Okay, I'm going to do it. Once again, the scraper. Try not to use your knife as your scraper. It's not so safe and it dulls your knife really fast. Okay, so there's my zest, which will hang out over here as we work on the other things, and we'll be ready for the vinaigrette. So in terms of the segmenting, here's what you can do. So this is a cut called supreme. This is a little bit fancy. You don't have to do this. I'll give you another option, which is kind of the cheater version, shortcut. But if you want to try this, you can cut the ends off of the orange. So I'm cutting off the stem end and then the other side. So I've got, you know, kind of a thing that looks like this. And then I set it down so I have a nice flat surface here. Then, I don't know if you guys can see this. If I can move a little closer. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to shave off the skin. So I'm going to kind of, you kind of have to get on top of your orange to do this. So I'm going to slice around. I'm just going to keep turning it. You need a very sharp knife to do this, by the way. In my last class, we kind of talked about some knife sharpening, which we can do too today if you guys want. Okay. So I've cut off the outside. I almost never get the other side completely off, so I'm going to flip it and just shave off these little bits here. And all I'm trying to do is get the white, the majority of the white pith part off so that I can see where the segment lines are located. Okay, now, let me find the bowl. Actually, let me use a bigger bowl. Multiple bowls. All right, you want to do this over a bowl because it's very juicy. So now you take your knife and you're gonna cut in on either side of the segment and out drops your segment. So you're gonna leave behind these little, you know, membranes that separate the segments. Okay, this is also why, as you can see, why you need a super sharp knife. And this is, I don't know if this is really a beginner task. I mean, this is one of these things that takes a little practice. Yep. There it is. I'm just going to go around, finish up this orange, and then I'll show you kind of the other quicker version, which gives you a little bit of the pith, but it's not so bad. All right, so there's that. Now, I have juice here, so I'm going to put this, let's see, I'm going to stick it in this other little bowl, because I could probably use that in my vinaigrette. Squeeze that out. So there's the Surprend orange segments. See? The other shortcut, you still have to take the skin off. So I'm going to take off my ends, prop it up here so it's not rolling around, shave off the outside. This one has a little bit thinner skin on the outside. Okay, and once again, I missed a spot there, okay. Okay, now once you have the skin off, you've got this. You can just cut it across into little rounds. And then what I like to do is then cut the rounds just into little half moons. Okay, so then we have sections like that. See? So little half moon sections, you know, you still have some of the membranes in there, but at least you've gotten most of the pith and the peeling off, and these are, you know, fine to eat. So if I were short on time catering an event, I do the shortcut. If I have time and helpers, we'll do the other one. So there's my oranges ready to go, and the asparagus is done. Okay, so let's move on to the vinaigrette, since we started juicing some oranges anyway. So we need about 1/3 of a cup. I'm going to put it in here so you guys can kind of see it. So I'm going to use this orange, what's left, and I'm just going to juice it with a basic juicer. And this one orange is probably not going to give me 1/3 of a cup, so I'm going to throw in a little bit of my mandarin over there, which will probably make it taste closer to a tangerine. Tangerines tend to be a little bit more sour than these navel oranges. Okay, cut this in half. That was lovely. I'm going to need a bigger, I think I was using a lemon juicer there. I think I'm going to need a bigger juicer here. It's like squirting everywhere. These are juicy. They're hitting my wall. They're hitting the recipe. Okay, that's good. Ooh, these mandarins smell really good. They actually do kind of smell more like a tangerine. Whoop. Okay, I'm almost there. I'm going to be covered in orange juice by the time this is done. Okay. This measuring cup I'm using, I think, is made by OXO, and they're everywhere nowadays. But the lines are kind of inside, so I don't have to do this song and dance where I'm like, where am I at? Oh, yeah. So they have the measurements inside. So there's my 1/3 cup of citrus juice. And then I'm going to add rice vinegar. If you don't have rice vinegar on hand, I think you could substitute something like a champagne vinegar. You know, something that's not too strong. I don't think I would do a wine vinegar. You could also probably just leave it out and just do, you know, just leave it with the citrus as your acid and call it a day. So I think I mentioned in my last salad class that typically if we were making a vinaigrette that had like a wine vinegar, your ratio is typically like 1 part of vinegar to 3 parts of your olive oil. And because orange juice is not as, you know, sharp as a vinegar, this vinaigrette is mostly orange juice. So we had to have a tiny bit of vinegar added in there. And then our oil is very minimal too. We're going to use a toasted sesame seed oil, which is available at any grocery store. Well, not any, but ones that would have like a little international aisle. So we're going to put in 1½ teaspoons of sesame oil. So here's the 1. And here's the 1/2. Okay, and then we're going to go back to our zest. So I'm going to put in, I think what I have is what I need here, which is fortunate. So there's the 1, the zest. Yep, that looks about right. And in there. I got stuck in my spoon there. Okay, zest. Now, the garlic. You could use a garlic clove. However, much more fun ingredient right now that's growing on farms is green garlic, and it looks like this. So it kind of looks like a big giant scallion, but this is basically baby garlic. Here's the garlic head that will eventually grow big, and they just pick it early. You can use the entire thing in cooking if you want. For this salad, I'm only going to use the white part down here because this top green part is a little bit tough. So if I were doing a stir fry or something where I'm cooking the garlic, I would definitely throw in the leafy green part up here, you know, but not for this type of an application. I'm going to just use the bulb part down here. So I want to cut off the root and get rid of that. One thing to keep in mind, so this, it grows similar to a scallion, which means you might have a little bit of dirt, you know, shoved in between these leaves down here. So, you know, what I think is the easiest thing to do is just to cut off this top part and then pull some of these apart, and you'll see the layers are very similar to a green onion or a scallion. And then you can wash, you know, these little sections. Kind of have to go through the area of the green leaf that was connecting to the, you know, bottom stalk part. That's usually where a lot of the dirt tends to accumulate. So I'll save those for another use. I only need about what is it here? 1 large garlic clove. So 1 large clove would be equivalent to about a teaspoon of minced garlic. So I'm just going to cut off a little section of this thing and mince it up. I don't need very much of this. Okay, so I sliced it. I need to dry my hands off a little more here, and my knife. Okay, so after slicing, then I'm going to change the position of my hand and kind of make it like a little fulcrum here. I'm going to do the chop, chop, chop after it's sliced. Okay, there's a little piece there that didn't quite make it into the pile. So you want this to be pretty tiny because, you know, this is a salad and you don't want to be biting into big chunks of garlic. So I've got it minced up fairly fine, and I'll measure out about a teaspoon of this. Right into my vinaigrette. Okay, the rest of this, I'll stick it over here, save it for later. All right, next is ginger. So here's a little knobby piece of ginger. To get the skin of the ginger off, I don't recommend using a peeler like we did on the asparagus. What I usually do is take a spoon, so I'm just going to use one of my measuring spoons, and you want to just scrape it off with a spoon, and that will just take off just the outer bit of peel and not take off a lot of the actual ginger, which is what you want to save, you know, for your recipe. There's a couple little knobs on here that I need to shave. Can't use my spoon over it. Okay. So I've got about half of this little thing with the peel off. Up there. Okay. Once again, the magic scraper. It's constantly with me. Okay. We just need about a teaspoon of this. So again, same procedure as with the garlic. I'm going to cut off a piece, and then I want to cut it in half so that I have a flat surface, a flat base rather on the ginger, so I'm not trying to cut something that's rolling all over the cutting board because that's not safe. So I'm going to cut it up like this first. I'm going to change the position of my hand and get that out of the way. A little chop, chop, chop action. And then we will be about done with our vinaigrette. We'll whisk it all together. Almost there. more chop routine here, because I don't want really large pieces of ginger in my salad either. I want to know that it's there, but I don't want to bite into a giant piece. Okay. Yep. All right, so that goes into my vinegar bowl as well. I'm going to put this with my garlic. You can make a little garlic ginger paste for some Indian food or something. Okay, so now I'm just going to whisk this together. I think everything's in there. Juice, vinegar, sesame oil, the zest, the garlic, the ginger, salt and pepper. I do a little pinch of salt. You know, we could also throw in a few drops of soy sauce, since we're kind of doing an Asian thing here. I've got a little bit of tamari. Let's do that. That's not in the recipe. I'm just kind of thinking let's add that in there for a little salt. Okay, so there's the vinaigrette. Ready to go. All right, now I just want to talk a little bit about the health benefits of asparagus. Back to our star of the show here today. I was doing a little bit of research, and this stuff is surprisingly nutritious. I had no idea that it had so many vitamins. So it's really great for A, C, E, and K, and it also has chromium, which is one of those oddball, I think it's a trace mineral, which helps to regulate blood sugar. So that was interesting to hear. It's also really high in antioxidants and has compounds that will neutralize free radicals in your body. So it's good for that. And it's also a really good source of folate, which I think is good for your brain. What else? Fiber, has lots of fiber, and it's also very high in potassium. I think it has about 400 some milligrams per cup of chopped up asparagus. So really, really a healthy vegetable. You know, it doesn't have a strong flavor. I guess I keep thinking that, you know, vegetables need to have stronger flavors, like, you know, kale or something, to have some nutrition to it. But, you know, it's kind of loaded with good stuff. So, and then of course our citrus has lots of vitamin C. Just a kind of a point about citrus in salads. When you have something, you know, citrus based, like your oranges or lemon juice or whatever it is, and you mix that with dark leafy greens, the citrus helps your body to utilize the iron that is found in the leafy greens. So I often put oranges with, say, a spinach salad, you know, because then the citrus does it. I'm not sure what the process is exactly, but I know that it helps pull the iron out of the leafy greens and get it into your body for utilization. So just a little point about there. However, when you are working with acids, like we are today on a salad, and green things like asparagus or the spinach or even the herbs, you want to make sure to dress your salad at the last minute and not do it ahead of time. And the reason is the acid in our vinaigrette and in our oranges will start to turn your green vegetables that ugly pea green color. There's a compound in there that just, you know, it makes it happen. It's like one of those science things. So you don't want to do this too far in advance. So I typically would get all of these things ready. If I were catering and I was doing this salad, I would have my asparagus cooked, ready to go. It's chilled in the fridge. It's ready to throw on the salad. You know, the oranges can get segmented ahead of time, wrap them up, put them in your fridge. The vinaigrette can even get made ahead of time, put that in the fridge. And then my garnishes, which are listed down at the, you know, third section of the recipe, which I'm going to talk about in a second. I have sesame seeds, both black and white, which are in here. You can toast these if you want. If you toast seeds on the stove top is how I would do it. If I were toasting nuts, I'd put them on a sheet pan and put them in the oven. But for little seeds like this, I would just put them in a saute pan on top of the stove. You want to use a dry saute pan. A friend of mine, I was at her beach house when I lived in Chicago. We were in Michigan and it was winter. It was like January. Luckily, there was snow outside because we had nuts. Well, she had nuts in a pan with oil and it caught on fire in the oven. I kid you not. And so But she was like, Stephanie, grab it. And I'm thinking, I don't want to grab it. I need my hands, you know. So anyhow, it was kind of a crazy thing. But you don't want to have a bunch of oil in a hot pan with nuts, especially in the oven. We ended up throwing the cast iron pan out into the snow and got lucky. But anyway, put your seeds in a dry, emphasis on dry, saute pan. You want to keep your heat on low to medium. Don't turn it up too high, otherwise these will burn really fast. And you want to keep circulating them while they're toasting. Typically, you'll start to smell the seeds, and that usually means they're getting done. The other reason you want to keep it on low is because you want this to toast slowly and not have the outside of your nut or seed burn before the inside of it gets a chance to kind of warm up and toast through. So anyhow, that's all about toasting. We've got some peanuts here. These are already toasted, salted, etc. You know, store-bought peanuts. And then our other garnish would be green onions or spring onions. So right now, this is what's growing all over the place, spring onions. And again, it's just a small kind of young onion. What I'm going to do is just take off the green tops because it's very much like a scallion. And we'll use that. The tops are a little funky looking, so I'm just going to cut off a couple little of these top parts. And I'm going to chop that up and have that as along with my other garnishes. So I'm just going to go crosswise so it makes kind of some pretty these little circles that you get when you cut the scallions. Okay. All right, so that's that. I'll throw those in here. So I think we're ready to put it all together. Let me check my notes. I have notes taped to the wall over here. Let's see. Yep. Okay, I think we're good. So when we toss all this together, I want to use, again, a really big bowl. Go to my collection of giant bowls right here. And I'm sorry this is not a glass bowl. So you won't be able to see exactly what I'm doing, but all right, the lettuce, I'm gonna dress the lettuce first. Okay. And then I'm gonna kind of top it with the other stuff. So we're gonna do our base right now. I give this another little whisk. I mentioned in the last class, if I make a standard vinaigrette with the vinegar, like say a balsamic and olive oil, the ingredient that will help it emulsify, which means it won't separate, is mustard. So you could put a couple drops of mustard. This has so little oil, we're just going to whisk it. You don't want to add mustard to this because it's going to screw up your flavor profile. But I just want to make sure that my sesame oil is thoroughly in there. Okay, then I need to toss spoons here. And this is, red leaf lettuce. So it's a little bit, it's not a sturdy green like a spinach would be. So you want to be kind of gentle. Just kind of tossing like this. You want it just barely wet. Okay, I'm going to grab a plate. And we're going to have a lot of really nice colors on this salad because of the red leaf lettuce. And it's up to you if you want to break this up into smaller pieces. I kind of like to leave the leaves big. People usually have forks. They can figure it out, right? Okay. All right, then my asparagus will go on. So again, your choice on the presentation. You could leave the spears whole, or you could cut it down so that it's easier for your guests to eat. I think what I'm going to do is just cut it in half. I probably don't need all of this. Maybe I do. Okay, so the asparagus is on next. So you can see I'm kind of composing this. So I'm kind of doing it in layers. Okay, so I've got the lettuce, the asparagus. Next is my oranges. And I'm going to have a couple different kinds of those segments, as you saw earlier. Okay. And one more. Okay. All right. Then we have our garnishes, which I think really helps to kind of finish it off. So I'm going to do my little green onion, scallion-y spring onion thing and sprinkle those all around. Before I put on the nuts and the seeds, I'm going to add a little more vinaigrette. I'm just going to spoon it over. And the reason being, the nuts tend to get mushy if they sit in the vinaigrette for a long time. So I'm just going to drizzle this because I want to add a little bit of this onto my asparagus. You could also toss your asparagus in a little vinaigrette on the side before adding it to your salad. Yeah. All right, and then on go my peanuts and my sesame seeds. I happen to have both black seeds and white seeds here. Okay, so this is looking nice and colorful. All right, I'm gonna try to hold this up so you guys can see. It might start to fall forward. Maybe I can come around. I don't know, you guys can see that. There it is, the salad. Okay.